Hello and welcome back to Tales Untold. I'm Wyatt,
I'm Erica.
and today we'll be talking about another infamous unknown serial killer, Jack the Ripper. Now, this is kind of an interest of yours, correct, Erica?
Yes, and actually, as I was reading into this, it felt very familiar to the Zodiac killings that we were talking about.
Yes. How so? Like, just because he was unknown or the way he killed?
Not necessarily the way he killed, because he mutilated these people. Like they called him Jack the Ripper for a reason.
Yeah.
But mostly because there were definitely 5 isolated incidences that they believed were a singular person.
Hmm.
But there were also several others that could have been connected to this person. Doesn't that sound familiar?
That does sound like the Zodiac. Because, he only has 5 confirmed kills. Did he injure anybody and people survived, or?
There was an incident where someone was attacked and survived, but they're not sure if she did this to herself.
Oh.
Yes, there was actually a report that she had done this to herself.
Like, what were the wounds and stuff, or like?
She stabbed herself. I think
Was it like
maybe like the stomach or something? Like she...
Was it like brutal on like?
It was, I mean, if you did it to yourself,
Well.
absolutely, that was brutal. But I wish I could find it, but it was aggressive. But then there was a report from somebody saying that she was a nutcase, and they heard her screams, but nobody was there. Like nobody else was in the house. And so they thought that perhaps she had done it to herself. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Do you think it was for attention, maybe? If she did end up doing it to herself?
Probably.
Like, was this after the first Jack the Ripper thing, or before?
After the first one.
Oh.
Yeah, so his crimes would have been in the newspaper already.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering, because I didn't know if she like saw a newspaper and was like, oh.
And the word of mouth definitely spread faster than the newspapers could.
For sure.
Definitely.
Was Jack the Ripper named by like police or like newspaper people, or self-named?
They had the name came from a newspaper calling him that.
I wonder if he likes that name. Or liked.
I mean, maybe. Or maybe he just didn't care.
It fits.
Yeah. But I think they did end up having some notes that were written in. Like exactly like the Zodiac. History repeats itself. It's insane how the similarities correlate here.
Did the Zodiac get his ideas from Jack the Ripper?
That's entirely possible. I don't think that there was ever any cryptic things sent.
Like ciphers?
Yeah, there wasn't any of the ciphers that were sent. I think there was a note that was sent that they signed Jack the Ripper after he had been named.
So I guess he did end up liking it if he signed it that.
Unless it was just somebody that was just
looking for attention.
Yeah. Just, those That's crazy true. People that do those things. And a lot like the Zodiac, there were 3 people that were the main suspects at the time. There was Montague Druitt. He was a lawyer.
I'm not going to try and even pronounce that.
Well, yeah. And he was a teacher with interest in surgery. So they're thinking that whoever did this had knowledge of the human anatomy. Because these people were absolutely mutilated. Like their guts they're taken out of their stomach and put up on their shoulder. Like he literally took these organs out and put them like a pillow. Like
that's sick.
I can't understand the purpose. Like,
I don't know why you would want to be touching all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
I don't even know why you would kill someone.
There was no latex gloves back then. Gross.
Playing with their organs after you killed someone. I mean, the organs that I'm thinking of is obviously their intestines.
I'd imagine they all feel quite the same.
Yeah, but
They're all going to be warm and squishy and wet.
Ugh,
You're welcome.
it's gross. There was actually a picture of one of the victims, right?
Yes, and even though it was black and white,
It was.
it was gruesome.
You could see where the blood.
Absolutely, and you couldn't see this person's face
Oh.
any longer. Like, and some of the cuts were down to the bone. It was.
How does that even happen?
I hope this person was long dead after they decided to cut into them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't experience the pain of being mutilated before death. That would be terrible. That oof. And a lot of them had their throats slit.
Mm.
And it's just it's
a lot of
brutal.
blood.
It's brutal.
Why though?
I haven't been able to come up with any kind of motive. Like with the Zodiac, they were all so different that I was able to give that thought of, yeah, no, I don't think that this was all the same person. I don't think that, I think it was just somebody writing into the news and the police just to be obnoxious, just to take advantage of a situation. But here with especially these 5 women, they're so similar that
they're all connected.
Yeah.
Not many people back then just ripped people's guts out.
No, not like that. And they were also in a more isolated area than the Zodiac. Like the Zodiac, those were miles away.
Yeah. Where was this? The Jack the Ripper stuff?
This was, I did not write down the exact spot. So it was in East End of London.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but it's a smaller area than the Zodiac area. Those were all over the place. Yeah, those were pretty far apart. When I saw that map,
yeah, they were like hours.
Yeah, like you would have had to drive, and there was not cars.
During the Zodiac thing, or
in
Jack the Ripper.
The Jack the Ripper
Okay, I was gonna
era
say.
there. Like, I mean, yeah, there might have been a car, but
not like
not as widely available as they were in the 70s. And then there was Michael Ostrog, to go back to our suspects. He was a Russian physician and a criminal who got imprisoned due to homicidal tendencies.
What does that even mean?
He liked to kill people.
So he killed people?
I guess so. I guess he did kill other people. Or maybe he was close to killing people. That's what it said.
Homicidal tendencies is a weird term.
It's very generic. And then there was an Aaron Kosminski, who was a Polish immigrant living in the area.
I've heard of this guy.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because the other day, when we were looking it up, we saw a news article that was, like, they discovered, like, DNA from that while ago, and they could have possibly identified him, and that was the name that was given.
Yeah, they think that they might have identified.
Yeah, from a shawl, which is...
A shawl?
Which is what? What is a shawl?
A shawl. It's like my best description is it is a cross between a poncho and a scarf. You just kind of wrap in it, or something kind of like what you would do with a blanket when you're cold and you're walking around your house, You just take one of those blankets that's just a little too small and you just wrap it around you. Kind of like that. DNA evidence has been contested over the years. The blood and semen on the shawl were over 100 years old. How in the world does that happen? Nobody washed this in 100 years.
If it was evidence, probably not.
I don't think it was.
It said it was.
But was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was kept by somebody's.
It says the shawl is a key piece of evidence in identifying Kaminsky.
Kosminski.
Kosminski. Yeah. I don't know how to say that. As the killer was called into question, this came after the scientists who carried out the DNA analysis made a fundamental error when calculating the changes of Kosminski being the murderer by using the DNA database.
What?
That was in 2014. I don't know.
So,
I'm just reading what it says.
yeah, no, it wasn't an evidence. The shawl was auctioned off and purchased by Edwards in 2007. So how do they even know that this is what it was related to? The bloodstains matched a descendant of Edo's. DNA, what? Go back to the top. So how do we know that this belonged to anyone that was of interest at that time?
I don't know. I thought it was a piece of evidence, but it doesn't. The way they worded it, it doesn't seem like it was.
No, I
Like they're
think
kind of just like around that it was evidence, but they're not saying it was.
they're saying that it itself is the evidence for the fact that it was Aaron Kosminski. But how do they know it was his? Or how do they know that it was involved in one of these murders if it was at an auction in 2007?
No idea. Did they ever say whose the blood was? Or was that just his?
I don't know. I didn't see it in the article.
I didn't either.
But that doesn't have enough information for me. That was 140, 50 years ago, 40 years ago?
What?
1888? 136 years ago or something like that? So,
Yeah, that was a while ago.
so how was this shawl,
So,
if it was kept and nobody wore it, nobody washed it, so that means somebody knew that it belonged to something that was bad. You know what I mean? Like somebody was hiding it
nobody just
and keeping it safe.
doesn't wash something for 136 years.
Yeah, like, and back then you're not gonna hold on to a piece of clothing and never wear it.
Yeah.
Like, that's very weird to me.
It doesn't make sense. They just might not be saying something.
Yeah, this article might just not be complete for my taste. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't.
This isn't the article that I was looking at the other day. That one was from 3 days ago.
136 years.
I thought that's what we said.
Is that what I said?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, look at me go. My mathemation.
This is a computer-generated image of Aaron Kosminski, a Jewish immigrant from Poland, rumored to be the killer, Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, one of the killings did say that a Jewish symbol was drawn on the wall, but before the sun rose, the police had them erase it so that there wasn't going to be some sort of uproar because of the Jewish symbol.
Was it the Star of David or just a different?
It didn't say.
Oh.
Very probably. Probably. But I thought that was interesting.
Why would the police have them remove it?
Well, they had gotten their evidence. They didn't want the word of mouth to poison the investigation.
That's true.
And then they didn't want, the Jewish people to be blamed for it. You know what I mean? Like people would instantly see that, especially in the 1800s, that they'd see that and say, "Oh, it's the Jewish's fault," and then anyone that's Jewish is now in danger.
Yeah.
Like, so he was trying to prevent that sort of thing from happening.
That makes sense.
Does it say who had the scarf all this time and why it was kept? Does the article mention?
I don't think so. I just said that this guy bought it from an auction.
So where was it before that? And that was back in 2007. So what was it doing for 115 years?
Better question. What has it been doing for the last, I don't know, 17 years?
What do you mean, since they found it again? Since it was at the auction?
Yeah, like, what has it been doing? And 17 years later, now there's DNA being found? Like, what has it been doing? For, I guess, 136 years, but since it was bought and resurfaced.
Yeah, so what made them believe that this shawl was connected to Jack the Ripper? Like, how did that connection? That confuses me. Catherine Eddowes, the fourth victim. So it was her shawl?
It says it was associated with Jack the Ripper, was found at the murder scene. So does that mean it's his?
So it was reportedly taken from the crime scene by acting Sergeant Amos Simpson, who kept it in his grandmother's house. The shawl was passed down through Simpson's family for generations, and it was eventually sold at an auction in 2007. But why would he do that?
I don't know.
Something's not adding up. What a peculiar thing to do.
I just don't think this makes a lot of sense.
No. There's another Zodiac connection for us.
Yeah.
It's another thing that just doesn't make sense. But I don't. Why would a sergeant take a shawl that? Did he somehow know that DNA testing was going to be something of the future, and he wanted to hold on to it so he could be caught long after everyone was dead?
Maybe he was using it as blackmail? Because maybe he knew who the Jack the Ripper person was?
Maybe. I'm not sure how wealthy any of these three suspects were. But Jack the Ripper could have been somebody that wasn't one of these three people. But also, they did say that the Aaron Kosminski is the guy that they pinpointed as the one,
like the prime suspect,
whose DNA was on the shawl.
Yeah.
For the most recent DNA test that they did. So how did they know? Did they use the descendants? So
they used like one of his family members.
I think they did that for the girl, Eddowes.
Oh.
Click the show more button. Edwards commissioned a DNA test on the shawl, which led to a claim that the DNA matched descendants of Eddowes and Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber and prime suspect at the time. However, the shawl's legitimacy has been questioned, and some experts have criticized the conclusions of the study. The shawl is not mentioned in any investigation reports from the time. Authenticity is debated. But if that is the DNA that they found, and it does match those two people, what are the odds? You know?
Yeah.
Some say that the DNA is also linked to 90% of Europe, making it unclear if it was linked to Eddowes.
I don't get that.
How can DNA be linked to 90% of a population?
Others also say that the shawl may have been contaminated over time. Didn't they say in the report that like there's almost no way that it was?
I don't know. I mean, if the, like I said, if this sergeant had the forethought to be like, blood testing is going to be a thing in the future. I don't know. And so he set it aside. Say they're going to keep it in a box, in a floorboard or something. Or, it said that he kept it in his grandmother's house and then they passed it through the family for the generations. That's so strange.
That is. Like, keep a shawl.
Have this crusty, blood-covered shawl. Happy birthday. Like, I'm not understanding his thought process here. Or
I'm not either.
Maybe he wasn't altogether the sergeant.
He could have lost it over this case, like, because it was like so mind-boggling.
Well, I was going in a different direction.
Oh.
So maybe he was just not altogether in the head, and he got a weird rise out of having something from a crime scene like that.
Maybe.
Or maybe he knew her.
That too. Or what if he was Jack the Ripper and he took that? Because they said it wasn't in any reports or anything. And if you're the sergeant of the police, pretty sure you're going to be one of the first on scene, and you could always just be like, swipe.
Yep. I wonder, maybe he knew her though. I feel like that's
That's possible.
Because that's something you would do, like if someone you passed and you cared about died, especially in that sort of way, you're going to want to keep a piece of them.
Yeah.
And she was supposedly a prostitute. So
it's possible that he could have
maybe
knew her through.
prostitution.
Yeah.
So maybe they were having not necessarily an affair because, she was a prostitute, but I mean like a relationship that wasn't ever going to actually work out because of their different lives.
Yeah.
So he wanted to keep a piece of her and he had to keep it a secret because they weren't supposed to be together in the beginning.
That's very true. Or possible.
Or maybe he was married.
Is there a Jack the Ripper movie?
Yes, there's several. There's lots of them.
This is apparently what he looked like.
That's pretty typical.
There's a chance that this guy could be the Jack the Ripper guy.
Maybe. Well, then wouldn't his DNA? I guess maybe if they didn't check it, but maybe his DNA would have been on the shawl instead.
That's true. Unless there's two.
Mm.
I don't see that being possible though, because
yeah,
I don't know two crazy people like that would do that. Like rip out organs and stuff. Like, ugh.
I know that.
I don't see two people doing that because of how gruesome it is. What were some of the other murders
that weren't the canonic five? I think that's what they call it.
Oh, what were the canonic five?
The
I know we just talked about two, right?
The only name that we named was Eddowes, and she was the fourth victim. So the first victim was on October 31st, 1888, Mary Ann Nichols. Then there was September 8th, Annie Chapman. September 30th, Elizabeth Stride. Then also on September 30th was Catherine Eddowes. And then there was Mary Jane Kelly on November 9th. And I think those two were on the same day because he was interrupted.
Really?
On Elizabeth Stride.
Why do you think that?
Well, that's what I was reading, was that he was interrupted, and that's why there was two murders in one night. So he wasn't able to finish whatever mutilation it was that he was doing to Elizabeth. So then he found another victim instead.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely rough.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the fear that these people had.
Probably a lot. I'd be pretty scared too.
And especially I guess in the Zodiac killings, they didn't have cell phones either. So, they were on a dark road by themselves. They couldn't just
call.
They couldn't just call somebody.
They had to go to a payphone.
In the 70s, yes, but even worse in the 1800s. You had to go find somebody.
Yeah.
You had to yell in the streets and hope somebody would hear you.
That's
frightening.
Thought, yeah.
That's frightening.
I don't even know if I'd want to survive one of these. Like, if I started getting attacked by him.
Oh, I know, and he mutilated you that poorly?
Yeah.
Oof. So there were about 11 potential murders that happened in the Whitechapel area that were supposedly the Ripper. And I believe these 11 are on top of the canonic 5.
Wow.
And so these are...
Is the Whitechapel thing like where it happened?
Yes. The neighborhood. And I know we were talking earlier about the lady that supposedly attacked herself.
Yeah, stabbed herself.
This is a different one, but it's similar. And so this is maybe about 7 months before the other murders started happening in the East End of London there. So this is February 25th, 1888. A 38-year-old widow named Annie Millwood was admitted to the Whitechapel Workhouse Infirmary with numerous stab wounds to her leg and lower torso. And she was later discharged, but died from apparently natural causes on March 31st.
So like a month later?
Yes. So I don't know if she was already an unhealthy woman. You know, maybe she had like some sort of
Does it
chronic
say
illness.
how she died instead of just natural causes?
It just says apparently natural natural causes.
Apparent? That's a little.
It's very vague. I don't.
That's strange.
I don't know. And then there are other suspected pre-canonical victims. A young dressmaker named Ada Wilson, who survived because she was stabbed twice she was stabbed twice in the neck with a clasp knife on the doorstep of her home by a man who demanded money from her.
Damn.
That was March 28th.
And what's the connection between that and Jack the Ripper?
Zodiac. So these are just, I believe, victims that they went back to that could be the predecessors of the actual canonic five. So, you know, somebody that's kind of testing out how they're going to attack their victims, you know, somebody that could actually potentially be planning what they're going to be doing, or, you know, is finally discovering their obscure taste for hunting people. Because a lot of these are done with a knife and they go for the neck and the abdomen, which is insane. Yeah. So like it's like someone's looking for something. That's how I felt looking at this. Especially those 5 women where their abdomen, or I guess 4 because one of them was interrupted. It seemed like he was looking for something. So those 4 women, they had their bellies cut open and their organs were removed and displaced. And like, why else would someone do that?
I have no idea. Why would anybody do that?
Yes.
I don't think there's an actual reason.
But I'm also going back to the Frankenstein situation where, you know, they robbed graves to look for the body. I mean, it's a story, but they robbed the graves to look for the body parts that they needed, or even in reality, there were scientists that used to dig up dead people so they could do the autopsies. I cannot talk today. Autopsies. Do the autopsies on them so that they could learn about the human body. So a lot of the science that we have now came from illegal activities. So I feel like he was looking for something. What it was, I'm not sure. I believe there was one woman that had her heart taken. I think it was her heart. So yeah. So was this person, the Jack the Ripper, looking for a particular heart, looking for someone with and he didn't care for their life, you know. He's going after prostitutes. Yeah. So he's thinking, nobody's going to miss these people, which is a terrible thought.
So, like, what would he do with the organs that he kept? Would he eat them, or?
Oh, who knows? But like I said, I think there was only one instance where the organs were only one organ was unaccounted for.
Maybe he was trying to save someone he loved.
Maybe.
But like, still.
But then he would have to do a heart transplant, so he would have to kill that person and then bring them back to life. I don't believe they had that sort of resources in 1888. Yeah.
I don't know when they started doing like transplants with actual doctors.
Yeah, I don't. Or maybe it was somebody experimenting with that sort of technology. But even still, they're looking for... What are they looking for? Like, I don't
know.
I don't know.
This guy was twisted.
Absolutely. I mean, whether he was trying to do it for a good cause or not, it's absolutely terrible that he was doing this to these people without care for their life.
I do have a strange curiosity. What the crime scene photo looks like in color.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I think I might look it up.
Well, let me know how you feel. I do not recommend this. I absolutely do not recommend looking up these photos. You need a very strong stomach. I stumbled upon one of them, and it was in black and white, and it's
It's bad, but it wasn't like bad because it wasn't in color.
Hmm.
So I looked at the colored one, and it's rough. It's
That's
bad.
not. Yeah, that can't be good.
Like,
It just let you look at it.
well, Google had like a blur thing, and I turned it off.
Oh, it's that bad.
Let's just say there weren't organs on her face. There was no face.
Oh, she was mutilated. Like, oh man.
It's way worse than you're thinking. Times
So
two.
I'm absolutely right. I do not recommend looking up these photos.
I don't either.
No. Mm-mm. No, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Not at all.
Oh yeah, look, I found the lady that supposedly self-inflicted the wound on herself.
What was her name again?
I believe it is Annie Farmer. She resided at the same lodging house as Martha Tabram.
Who?
Why is she important? I don't know why she's important.
Does it not say?
And reported an attack on the 21st of November, 1888. She had received a superficial cut to her throat, although an unknown man with blood on his mouth and hands had run out of this lodging house shouting, "Look at what she has done," before two eyewitnesses heard Farmer scream.
Oh.
Her wound was light and possibly self-inflicted. That's a whole lot of strange things happening in that scenario. I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah, overstimulated.
I mean, a guy running out of the house with blood on his mouth and hands? Why was that on his mouth?
Vampire?
In the daylight?
That's true.
I don't know.
This thing is kind of more confusing than the Zodiac. I'm gonna be honest, because the Zodiac we can kind of like look at everything, try and understand it, but this is just a bunch of random. I don't even know.
And just like with the Zodiac, I think that there is a lot of misinformation because of people trying to make themselves feel important.
Yeah,
and
like
that kind of thing.
Person that sent in the letter and claimed it was a hoax years later.
Mm-hmm.
The troubled teenager or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely convoluted. There's a lot of information, and then there's a lot of information that just doesn't
add up.
Yeah.
I can see why it's a big mystery and nobody really knows or could find him.
I don't know if we ever really can, because even that Shaw the article, that article didn't even sound 100% sure.
It didn't like give us a direct answer where it even came from. We had to look into it, and still then we just what was it doing in someone's wherever for 136 years? Or
there's definitely a lot of strange things happening. Like why would a sergeant just take a piece of evidence? Like no, they didn't have DNA testing, so something like that wouldn't have been kept in a plastic bag in a box in a basement like it would be now, but why would he take it at all?
Yeah, that too.
Then exactly. Why didn't he wash it? Why
like if he wanted to keep it like for himself, why didn't he wash it? It's just I don't even know.
I don't know. It hurts my head to wonder. And I think we've touched on about all that we can for Jack the Ripper today.
Yeah, I didn't see much while researching.
There's definitely a lot of information. There's a lot of movies as well.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's other books. There's all kinds of things. There's so many people's variations that they put their own spin on it. Like some of them even claimed that a woman was the Jack the Ripper as well. Yeah, I think that was a movie. There's so many.
Jill the Ripper.
But next week we have some topics from some of our listeners. So don't forget to leave your comments, give us more ideas for anything that you'd like us to discuss, and we will definitely check them out.
Yes, we do have a couple. I am excited to talk about all of them. I'm Wyatt.
I'm Erica. Thanks for listening. This has been
Tales Untold.